Hey everyone, and welcome to the Pisgah Podcast.
We are your hosts. I'm Mangler, and that is Drew, and you are listening to Pisgah. We're coming to you live from a canoe at the Davison River Campground.
It's a good place to camp. Usually it's not deep enough to put a canoe in, but right now we have some extenuating circumstances, huh?
Yeah, pretty much.
So, as far as the news goes and past week's updates, there's not a whole lot going on in the past week, but in the news, we do have DuPont closed until the end of the week due to the weather. Ranger District is asking us to stay away. This tropical storm has also got the French Broad River Valley under flood watch until Thursday evening. It's also given us a new rock slide on I-40 westbound near exit 37 and also on 1923 in Canton.
It seems like we have these 10-year floods every year now. So you sent me a text the other day with a picture of a new bike. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, it's finally new bike day. After what I thought was going to be a quick turnaround, turned into a worthwhile wait. But yeah, I've got my new bike. I've got a couple of rides beneath me so far. But, I am definitely bummed that I can't be riding a little bit more to get it dialed in. But yeah, I got a Yeti SB165. It's kind of an odd bike. A lot of people have questioned my purchase here, but here's my, if you want to follow me through this, here's my train of thought. I got rid of my downhill bike.
Mm-hmm.
I do still like to go to bike parks.
Yep.
I just wanted to have a bigger trail bike that I could fit those bike park days in with, but could also do, my big chundry rides in Pisgah with. Alternately, I will also now be shopping for a shorter travel 29er that's going to take up the slack and kind of increase the range that I have. That would be a good kind of long day in the saddle bike. So that's on the horizon. But for right now, I'm just going to enjoy this thing.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are kind of leaning more towards that way now because when you think about going on a bike park trip, especially to somewhere like Snowshoe that also has some really fun pedal trails in the area, it does kind of make sense to kind of just bring one bike. So you've got a bike you can ride everything on. And also, I mean, let's be honest, there's some days where you want to go crank out some DuPont miles. And then there's some days where you want to go rip Bennett Gap. And both those zones are way different. And so they can demand a different bike. It's not to say you can't take a 120 bike down Bennett Gap and have fun, or you can't take a 165 bike to DuPont and have fun. But it just opens your options a little bit more, which is kind of exactly what I did because I've got my 130 little trail bike and I have my Enduro 170 bike. So we're both on the same mindset here. We're riding the same wavelength.
Yeah, I didn't think that it was worth, if I'm going to have two mountain bikes, having a downhill bike and then having a 160 mil travel bike. They just were, they're crossing over a little bit too much. And yeah, I kind of like the idea of spreading it out and having something that I can actually go crank out miles on and not have to wear the weight of it. But so far, so good. I've enjoyed the couple of rides that I've got on this bike. I've set some PRs on it that surprised me because
Okay.
I was just trying to dial the bike in and not even trying to push it. So it's impressing me. It's got some things that it does markedly better than my last bike, such as cornering and technical climbing. And it's got some things I can't quite figure out yet. So it's going to take a little bit of, just spending some time with it and trying to figure out what my settings need to be, or if it's just muscle memory from the old bike
Mhm.
and getting it figured out.
Yeah, I think new bike day PR is a thing because it kind of happens to everyone when they get a new bike. Because you're just psyched to ride a new bike. A new bike just feels so good. It's quiet. It sounds good. And you're just psyched to go fast on something new, and boom, you end up getting a PR on something,
Yeah.
just having fun on it, which is awesome.
Yeah, the PRS set was by 49 full seconds, which is mind-boggling because I really wasn't even trying.
There it is, new bike PR stoke is real.
But yeah, I wish I could be riding the bike a little bit more right now because of the weather, but I just can't. I wish I could be dialing it in and getting some things figured out with it, but it's a rough time with the weather, and if you need your bike fixed, this is a good week to stay in and fix your bike.
And, as we talk about fixing our bikes, we've had some mechanics on the show in the past, but this week's interview subject is a little bit more than a mechanic. He's also a top shelf mechanic, is Josh Patton. He is a World Cup mechanic for the YT Mob, and he works with Dakota Norton. But he is also a coach for Lindsey Wilson College up in Kentucky. He has spent a good amount of time down here in Pisgah, so I thought he would be a great addition for us to interview for the show. So here we are with Josh Patton.
All right, yeah, so I'm Josh Patton. I live in Campbellsville, Kentucky, central part of the state, and I'm the U.S. mechanic for the YT Mob. I work with Dakota Norton, and I'm also the head cycling coach of Lindsey Wilson College. Those are my two main hats that I wear. All-around bike guy, been racing bikes for like 21 years now. Love every aspect of it.
You just crossed that double decade racing bikes longer than a lot of kids that are getting up that starting gate have been alive.
Yeah.
Kind of give us an introduction to kind of how you found this lovely life of bicycling.
Well, started racing when I was 8, BMX, like many of us. Did that for many years, I guess, 10 years or so. And then as I got bigger and could fit a mountain bike, I learned mountain biking when I went to college. Fell in love with it and, got to realize all the opportunities that mountain offered that BMX, lacked in, diversity of trails and dirt and, technical features and so on and so forth. And so that led me into downhill and slalom racing since I was a BMXer. And then that led me into building endurance and racing some cross country and enduro and going on big, long bike packing trips and all kinds of cool stuff. I wished I'd have learned at an earlier age to take advantage of all the various forms of cycling and various forms of mountain biking and all of that. In the years, I've raced expert level BMX, pro level dual slalom and downhill, raced some road and stuff, but nothing at like a pro or anything close to a pro level there. So yeah, got a nice little sampling of all of it.
Yeah, I believe when we first met, you were up at Beach Mountain doing a downhill race. So that was kind of my introduction to Josh Patton, the professional downhill racer.
Yeah, for sure. Those are good days. I remember that.
Talk to us about your time spent in Western North Carolina. I know you've been here for various different reasons throughout your cycling career. So give us some highlights of some of your favorite trips.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, Pisgah area, Western North Carolina, just, all up and down the mountains there. It's hard to beat. And it's a good weekend trip from where I'm at in Kentucky. It's like 4 or 5 hour drive. Lots of Kentuckians make their, 3-day weekends down in Brevard and stuff. So, me and, handfuls of other guys have came down and made those trips. Favorite spots down there. Pilot Rock's pretty awesome. Going up through Laurel and riding that and coming down Pilot's pretty awesome. The thing that, you guys have that is kind of missed in a lot of other places, especially now with mountain biking getting so big, is like the wilderness feature.
Yeah.
But it not being like a big, crazy like ordeal to get that wilderness feel. Mm-hmm. If you're going out wilderness riding in the Rockies, like you might need a spot beacon and like, a pretty bulletproof plan. And Pisgah is like teetering on that, but not like it don't have to be that. You have so much national forest and so much good trail, and it's pretty remote. You get some nice backcountry riding without the like, having to plan a big ordeal.
Like the huge backcountry risk.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like you go to somewhere, and I'm not knocking on this, but you go to somewhere like Baker's Creek in Knoxville, and you don't, it's urban wilderness, and you definitely feel that it's urban because there's hundreds and hundreds of people there a day, so it's just drastically different than that. It's nearly a completely different sport, and it's Brevard. I mean, Pisgah, Brevard, just all of Western North Carolina there. There's something that's always appealing to me about it because I grew up in Eastern Kentucky, which is pretty similar. We're foothills of the mountains, not full blown like big mountains like Mount Mitchell and stuff like you guys have. But, rhododendron like thickets down in the bottom of, the valleys, and you're just like zooming through all of that, just the nice lush green woods, the perfect soil, all that stuff is like kind of like home, just more.
Yeah.
So there's always been, that kind of sense that I've, enjoyed, your guys' area because of that. So yeah, It's awesome. Plenty of people to ride with too. It's easy to not worry about getting lost because you'll see a local on the trail and be like, hey, should I go this way or this way? You can't go that way. Definitely don't go that way. Go this way. All right, sweet. Thanks.
Yeah. One thing I just picked up on what you said there is you referred to valleys. Now, come on. You grew up in Eastern Kentucky.
It's hollers. It's a holler.
It's a holler.
It's a holler.
Talk to me about your stint in downhill racing, because you spent a good bit of time in that zone.
Yeah, so I started taking downhill serious in probably like 2011-ish. I'd really started racing mountain bikes in 2010 when I went to college at Lindsey Wilson. And, rough introductory to downhill. It's like, hey, here's a collegiate downhill race. Take your dirt jumper. That's a hardtail and send it. Okay, great. 18 years old. It's fine. Yeah. You'll make it. You'll get a flat, but you'll be fine. So that was my introduction to downhill there. And then that grew into me buying a Specialized demo a year later and then racing real races and, slowly going up from there and, finding myself on a pro team and some sponsors and, able to take it serious. And, I was never at World Cup speed or able to go World Cup speed. Honestly, I hit the stop button before I usually got to that level of risk taking, because that's kind of what it is how much risk do you want to, put out there for the reward of, World Cups and, big podiums. And I kind of hit the stop button before I got to that level, because I was like, I really like these other forms. Like, I'm pretty comfortable here. And, that's where that is. Probably stopped racing downhill seriously then in like 2016 as enduro was getting bigger. Mm-hmm. I thought I'd, play with that a little bit. And I'll be honest, I don't love enduro. I love riding enduro. I don't necessarily love racing enduro, or didn't enjoy racing enduro at that time, because you might get 3 of the 6 stages that actually worked for the timing system, and you may or may not get lost on a transfer, all those things that the kinks weren't really worked out of yet.
But the early days of enduro were a bit rough in some spots, especially in the Eastern US.
Oh yeah, for sure. But it's all good now. So yeah. And, I raced Solemn, the few Solemn races that we had back in, that 2010 to 2015-ish range, got on a few Solemn podiums throughout my Solemn time, won a collegiate dual Solemn national title in Solemn, was on some national champ downhill podiums too, but never took it to the level that a lot of these guys in this area are taking it now, which is pretty awesome. Downhill's in a good spot now, so it's really good to kind of be in the sport now in a little bit different way to get to see how it's all playing out for a lot of these younger guys.
You've also transitioned. Before you took the role at YT, you were doing some collegiate coaching. So talk to us on how that came about.
Yeah, so my alma mater, Lindsey Wilson College in Columbia, Kentucky. I took that role like 3 or 4 years ago, or seasons ago. And yeah, I mean, it was one of those things. It's kind of natural that if you're a collegiate cyclist, sometimes you just find yourself back in the collegiate cycling world as a coach or as an assistant coach or something like that. Collegiate cycling gives racers a lot of opportunity, and it gives a lot of fun, honestly, for that opportunity. Like I joke and say I go back and be a student versus the coach any day. I'd much rather just be hopping in the van to go race than having to plan it all out. So when the opportunity came up, it just made sense. I wanted to do something back in the bike world, and I just felt like that was right. And it's been good. Our program's grown a lot in the last few years, and I'm still the coach there, and we're getting ready to start another season here post COVID. So hopefully things are pretty normal compared to the last year and a half where we pretty much haven't raced any and haven't got to do that much because of all the extra precautions with colleges and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, it's come back around. It's definitely different being a coach than being the student, but there's a lot of things of being the coach that are pretty rewarding. Getting to expose someone to a new discipline and then they just become really good at it, or teaching someone how to corner better on a Solemn track, or how to get through a muddy route section on a downhill bike, or, timing on shifting in a short track race. And, just so many little small things. Like you get to work with a lot of people on a daily basis. And I didn't really realize this when I was a student, but I was fast because I was young and invincible. Right. And
yeah.
There's just speed that comes with that. Mm-hmm. You don't have to have a lot of wisdom to be fast sometimes. So it's nice to be able to take some of the wisdom that I've gained over the years I've been racing and give it to those young and tough kids and, watch them get better and better from it.
What kind of training setup do you guys have for trails and courses and stuff?
Yeah, so we actually own our own cycling complex. The Dr. Phil Aaron Cycling Complex is a 16-acre facility about a mile from campus. It's a nice little rolling hillside that's got a dual slalom track, BMX track with an Olympic-sized starting hill, dirt jumps, pump track, short track course, cyclocross course, and like an XCO loop that's ever evolving. So it's pretty awesome. Big open playground. I joke and tell everyone, but it's kind of serious. Like, hey, if you ever wanted like the most epic backyard ever, you have that here because it's our baby. It's not a public park. It's owned by the school, and it's after class, go grab a shovel and make the dirt jumps bigger and better, and have fun is kind of the way of life as being a collegiate cyclist.
Yeah. I guess are you also including like trail maintenance and stuff like that with some of the program?
Yeah, so it's no dig no ride is definitely part of the lifestyle there. We usually host a race every year, so leading up to that, everyone's got to put a fair share of digging in to make sure it's prepped for all the other schools to come race. But just throughout the year, it comes in waves of after the winter, we'll have a little bit more work to do to get it really primed for the spring versus in the start of the year, we might have some things we want to work out before we start practicing. But it's definitely, we have work days where it's like, hey, we're going to work for 2 or 3 hours, and then we're going to ride. It's going to be good. And when you have 40 people out there, you get a lot of work done really quick.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the good thing. But, most of the time on a daily basis, a lot of people, especially your gravity kids and your BMX kids that are very used to this, they'll pick up a shovel or just turn the water hose before they unload the bike, and do a little bit of maintenance.
Just kind of second nature.
Yeah, it's just part of it. Like, you want to ride a better course. What's 15 minutes between 3 people to water the track and pack a few turns in and scrape a few rocks out? It's simple and, kind of keeps everything flowing, keeps, problems from forming on the track. And, they learn that. So yeah, it's good. And some people don't know how to dig at all. So we get to teach them, and then you have some cross country guys that go hit the dirt jumps and learn how to ride dirt jumps. And then they get super hooked and want to be better jumper. And, then they're over there digging and trying to soak in all the information from that. So it's a really cool setting that, is not only a bonding experience, but it actually is good for the development of their riding skills.
Do you have a certain discipline that you see a lot of new students kind of leaning more towards?
You see some guys some guys and gals that maybe race road, get a little bit more into mountain biking because they see how much fun the mountain bike collegiate racing is. It's arguably the most fun that you can have in collegiate cycling just because of kind of how the races shake out and just the environment of it all. But, you also see a lot of people trying cyclocross. It's pretty low hanging fruit to go try cyclocross, even if you're on a mountain bike, just, hop in a Cat 3 and see what it's like. And then, sometimes you have road racers get on a dirt jump bike and race slalom and do really good in it just because they're all around naturally gifted. You don't see a whole lot of people jump on the BMX track from, road or mountain without getting hurt.
Just snapping the gates, flipping over.
Yeah, we've had a few people get in the gate and then go full sprint at the first jump and just not expect it to throw them and just they'd be like, yep, not doing that again. So yeah, it looks easy. It looks easy, but it's different.
Do you think with the popularity of the Olympics this past year and it's had a lot of good coverage, do you think that's going to influence some more cross-country oriented?
Yeah, absolutely. And NICA is just, chart topping right now. The amount of NICA racers going into college is growing every year. And, you have some programs or some chapters of NICA and stuff like that have, thousands of racers that are, coming through the program, and they're all looking for collegiate cycling schools because they're getting really hooked into mountain biking. So that's a great thing for colleges collegiate cycling colleges to have a problem with. The Olympics and the USA taking it pretty seriously now and getting some coverage, and, track cycling, getting some coverage where we're having results with that. And then, also crit racing and road racing, and there being good USA teams that are getting results now. That all helps because it's the carrot that hangs in front of the rider. They got to have something to see to work towards to incentivize them to go and race and try to do this or try to be like this person. And there's a lot of good things in American cycling. So that's definitely helping with, all the things that come to the college side of things.
How do you feel your gender layout is? Are you still seeing a lot of males or a lot more females coming in?
We do see more males than females. At times, we've actually had more females on the team than males, just in like some random years where the, turnout just happened like that. We do see a lot of females face burnout a little bit earlier than males. Sometimes people put all their eggs in the basket and, get really, really into the sport, and maybe they do it at too early of an age. And then by the time they go to college, be like, I just want to go riding on the weekend. I want to focus on my studies, and maybe don't choose a cycling college. And we see that a lot more with the females than the males. It's a little bit of a maturity thing sometimes. They're like, yeah, I'm going to college to worry about college, not worry about bikes. And then sometimes it's, they're just wanting to take a break from bikes and race bikes after they graduate and do things like that. So we do see a lot of girl racers though that are coming through that are being pretty serious though. We used to see a lot of girl racers that maybe didn't see that they could be a pro that raced at a world level, or could see themselves as a paid professional athlete, but that is changing now, and that's pretty awesome to see.
What type of education is your school mostly focused on?
Yeah, so we're a liberal arts school, super duper small. I mean, I can't express how small we are. Well, if you guys know Brevard, we're slightly bigger than Brevard, so small school.
Do you guys compete with Brevard College?
We do. We'll actually be down there for a race in a few weeks. So
right on.
We're in the same conference, same cycling league. It's a very small community, collegiate cycling is. But yeah, we're liberal arts college. So we have, nursing degree, biology, math, pre-engineering, business, I hate to say it, but kind of the basics, but that's kind of the point of liberal arts educations, is to like get you a really good foundation with like your direction. And then you keep taking that further into education and, doing what you do.
Are you having many students from the team go on to like a master's or a doctorate level education?
Yeah, we've had a good handful of students going to get their master's degree. We have a lot of students that get a business degree that, hope to work in the bike industry one day. And that's, sometimes the best degree to get. It's pretty well rounded for most jobs that you can retire from in the bike industry. So there's jobs in the bike industry, and then there's jobs you retire from in the bike industry. Big difference.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've had a handful. I couldn't count them we've been a program for 25 years, so it'd be hard to try to count all the like doctorates and stuff we've, had attached to the program at one point. But I mean, there's people doing big things everywhere. I mean, there's some really cool connections back to our program, which is really awesome to see, because, I have teammates, and then, I have friends who've had teammates that are on the program before me and stuff like that. And they have really close friends that came through the cycling program and did the thing that they did, traveled the country, raced bikes, and, got the experience, and they're going off and doing one thing over here and then another thing over here. And it's just really cool to see how that network grows. And
absolutely.
You're always connected because cycling.
One of the best thing about bike riding is just the connections.
Mm-hmm.
So what did you major in?
I was a double major in business and media studies with the emphasis in graphic art.
Okay. And you've done some journalism projects over the years. Talk to me about some of that, because I know you've done some writing for some bike packing trips and some stuff like that.
Yeah. So, from my degree with media studies, that covered journalism, graphic design, some videography, pretty well-rounded media degree, because a lot of media jobs now, you kind of have to do a little bit of everything to fit the bill. And so I did a bike packing trip back in 2017. We did coverage on that, and a few publications published it. I've done photos for like Barkley marathons, the trail running race in Tennessee, had published photos of that. I've also done design work and some video work, web work, like the more basic media stuff, and still do that like when I have the spare time and, feel like there's a project that I enjoy, or if it's with a friend that I want to like work with and stuff like that, we take it on.
So you go from your double major and then coaching, and how did you end up becoming a World Cup bike mechanic? Because that's pretty high level.
Yeah, so me and Dakota were on the team. We had some overlap years on the team. So we've known each other for, close to 10 years now. And yeah, it was one of those things. Dakota was, we were talking, just catching up at the end of the season last year and talking about what his future looked like next year and team wise and all that stuff. And, I was like, well, who's going to be your mechanic? He's like, I don't know and stuff. And we spitballed the idea. I was like, well, what does this look like if I was to do this? And, talked about it. He talked about it with the team manager, and, on down the line, a few phone calls later, it's me as the one signed up to do it. But it works pretty good. I used to work in a shop when I was in college and right out of college. And, I thoroughly enjoy working and developing all things bike related. I got to prototype a lot of parts when I was a pro racer. I didn't have a mechanic at all the races, so I did learn to work on a lot of my own stuff when I was a racer.
Mm-hmm.
And in college, racing back-to-back weekends, you learn how to work on your stuff really quick there, because Amazon wasn't as fast as it was then, so you couldn't get your spare parts in as quick. You learned how to make do with what you had sometimes. Yeah, it just came along, and it's going well. I mean, I love this opportunity. The pro mechanic life is pretty awesome. It's a really fun point in the sport to be at, just for multiple reasons. You get a little bit of the stress and the anxiety like the racers get, the nervousness on top of the hill. It's like, what's going to happen? Like, is everything perfect? Like, could we have done something better at the end of the run? And like all those kind of same thoughts and feelings. So it's, kind of like racing in some ways. It's pretty nice.
I'm sure a lot of people don't really understand what goes on with a World Cup mechanic. So kind of walk us through a setup of how a weekend goes. Like, what do you do when you show up and the truck is pulling up and getting set up?
Yeah, so we set the truck up. Task one is all hands on deck as far as the mechanics and staff go, to get the tent and the awning and all that stuff put up on the truck, which is a few hour job usually. As far as like the bike work goes throughout the 4 or so days of a World Cup, the riders have the routine down. They know how many runs they want to do on practice day, how many runs they want to do before qualies, how many runs they want to do before the race run, all of that stuff. It's just habit for them. And usually the times that the UCI has them going off are pretty close to the same, especially for protected riders. And it's super routine for them. So Dakota and, all your top guys, they know exactly what they want and when they want it. So we'll already know, all right, maybe this run we're going to try this tire set. And then a 1 run or 2 runs later, we're going to switch to this tire set to see how, mud tire does versus a dry tire. Or we expect the track to dry out 2 hours into practice day, so we'll switch them out then. We have all this routine set. And then after, things are done for the day, are we going to make changes? Are we going to change anything overnight? As far as, tires for the next day, as far as, small things like fork spacing or like bar height or anything like that. And that stuff usually doesn't change much, if ever. If you get on a super steep track, you might want to play with some things like that. PSI, you might play with it a little bit, but I mean, a click here, a click there, and, there's not a whole lot of changes that go on when you're set up. You know what you need. Working on the bike over the night, they get broke down to almost the bones nearly every single night. Of course, conditions, if it's crazy muddy, is going to be more of a tear down than if it's, prime, just, easy dirt falls off the bike kind of conditions. But everything gets checked, every single volt, every single thing that spins, pretty much, looked over 4 or 5 times before the next day, and repeat that for 4 days and hope you made the best decisions come race day.
Talk to me about bike travel, because I've heard a couple of different guys say they kind of do things different. Some guys would just travel with like their suspension. Some guys won't travel with anything. Like, how do you guys operate with Dakota and some of the team?
Yeah, so we're really fortunate. The YT Mob, we have a base in Europe, and we also have a pretty good base here in America. And so in Europe, we have a truck, and we get to put our EU race bikes on the truck. So when Dakota lands in Europe, he's got a bike ready to rock and roll. It's the bike we've set up. It's the one he raced at Leger and Leo Gang. And, pretty much pull it back out of the truck, get it ready to race for the week, swap some bearings, swap some grips, freshen up the tires, do things like that. And it's good to go. And then here in America, of course, he's got his bike that he has at his house to practice on and train on and, put through the paces at Windrock. But then he's also got a US race bike. And so do the rest of the guys on the team, because we have a truck here in America as well. And so that, is basically a mock bike of the same bike in Europe. to the millimeter, it should be set up the same. As far as suspension and stuff goes, some guys do that. It's for consistency, especially if it's a prototype or something like that, a few prototype suspensions could be a little bit different from one another, or they have a special tuning that maybe, they make custom for that rider and you just don't have 2 or 3 of them to use. They'll travel with that. And then too, if you have a very specific shock, like if you run a 450 and you have a 450 and you don't have a 450 at home, or maybe your 450 at home is a little bit softer and you just want to keep with that 450, then you take that, because believe it or not, shocks and the weights printed on them, they're not super duper accurate all the time. Like they can vary, a little bit, give or take. So, and pro riders can usually feel if it's like 10, 20 pounds off, they can usually feel that. So they may just have a preference to keep a certain product there.
What about your tool setup? I know you've got a pretty awesome like Pelican case style setup. Do you travel with that to the races, or do you have a tool setup at the races and one at home?
No, I travel with that to the races. It'd be a pretty expensive endeavor to have a duplicate in Europe, but maybe in a few years after I can accumulate a few more tools and stuff, because it's definitely stressful going to the airport and knowing they're going to open that sucker up and go through it and hoping that it shows up, across the pond and one piece and all the expensive tools. You don't want to lose your torque wrench out of there. Some dude in TSA that's like, oh yeah, this is a $250 wrench, and just slide it in his pocket or something. You always have that fear.
Oh, yeah. I mean, me traveling with my audio gear, same thing.
Oh yeah, exactly. The case can protect anything, but it's when they open the case is what you're worried about. So if everything's going to stay in it.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely. And we had, and my toolbox actually showed up a couple of days late flying over to Europe this last time, just, missed one of the connections or something the box did. And, then they delivered it. So that kind of stuff's stressful, but you do the cutout foam to make the travel for the tools safer and better. And also kind of, idiot proof for them to put the tools back in place. So they, can just, put it there like a kid's toy kind of, and, get the box to close and be on its way.
Yeah.
So yeah.
How meticular do you go through these bikes? Like fine tooth comb level stuff, I'm sure.
I mean, yeah, it's, there's certain things that it's just put it on, tighten it up. It's fine. You don't have to worry about it. Then there's some things that you dial in, you watch, you care about, we play a spoke tension some. Spoke tension's one of those things you really have to watch, because if you get it too loose, the spokes come loose and it's a bad day. So there's like things like that if you're adjusting, you have to watch more versus like other things that you're maybe never touching, depending on the part, depending on the bike, depending on the race conditions. It's good to go and you never have to worry about it. So yeah, there's some things that get really, really picky about, and then other things it's like it's fine. Pretty much though, like every part on the bike gets touched almost every day. So if something's happening, by doing that, you should notice it or start to see signs of something and, get a heads up before something turns bad. Because usually they're doing a couple laps, if not every single lap, coming back to the pits. So, quick once over, spray the bike at a muddy race between each practice lap. So you're not just making your bike 40 pounds heavier for each practice run. But yeah, check it over, check this, check that, make sure, pedals are staying tight, make sure the bars and headset are tight, just like the little things that, you come down one run and something may have come loose, because everything, like no matter how nice of a bike you have, can sometimes come loose, especially at a World Cup track where it's just absolutely torture on the bike. So you just check it almost for safety for their next run and, send them back up the hill and repeat again.
So you're getting to travel to all these amazing World Cup downhill tracks. How often are you getting to actually ride them?
Yeah, so I got a fair bit of riding at Leogang because the daylight was long enough there, and like it was kind of a quickly ran event in the sense of like you can easily leave the pits, hop on the lift, and go get a lap in, early in the morning or late in the day after practice. And then there's a couple off days, before and after the weekend. So got some good bike park laps on the trail bike in at Leogang, and then we spent 2 weeks in Morzine. So tons of riding in between the two World Cups, like almost every single day riding, like doing our, like, going with Dakota to Plenty to do practice laps or wherever he was doing laps that day. And then trail bikes after lunch. Good, epic, great days of riding there.
Your social media photos were awesome from that like 2 week window you had.
I appreciate it. Yeah, it was hard to take a bad photo. I mean, you just turn your camera on and you're getting something nice.
Postcard views everywhere.
Oh yeah.
How do World Cups differ from coming back to the States? Because you guys did the nationals. Like how do things play out different with that stuff?
It's different in a lot of ways. I mean, so first off, World Cup tracks are steep and gnarly. Everything is way smaller on Red Bull TV than what it is in life. If that braking bump, if the braking bump looks bad on TV, it is terrifying in real life. I mean, it's probably like way steep almost, it's just, the courses it's so hard to describe until you see them. And if it looks fairly steep on TV, it's straight down in real life.
Yeah.
So there's that. And we don't have, I mean, I'll be honest, we don't have a whole lot of courses in America that are up to that standard. I mean, we have a lot of bike parts that are good for everyone. You don't have the crazy steep black trails that will get someone hurt. You have a few here and there, but it's not as abundant as what you see in Europe. But, as far as World Cup compared to how we did at national champs, we didn't have the team truck there. We didn't have, the team manager and the road crew and all the people that are normally with us at a World Cup. So there's a lot more, I guess you could say, DIY on mine and Dak's part to, make sure we get the work done.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just kind of that's the same for everyone. I mean, hardly anyone had the same setup in Colorado as what they have when they're in Europe. So that's the, pretty normal situation, but you make do with what you have, and, you kind of just, you get used to it, and it works. It always works. That's the good thing is you can have an awesome pit setup at some races, or you can be a privateer and working out of the parking lot. And, as long as you kind of know what you need to have to make it happen, you can usually make it happen. So that's a good thing. Pit setups are definitely nice. Don't get me wrong. Being under a tent in the pouring rain and, having a trailer with a coffee machine and a couch and a bed and all that stuff that you can walk in and hop in and stuff like that throughout the day is game changing. But, as far as getting on the track, going fast and everything like that, all these guys at a World Cup level will have one or two races a year, of course, that they don't have their full rig, and they just know how to make it work. So
you hanging out on the side under an easy up with a bike stand and a fold out table with your tool set up, it works.
It works. You just gotta, you change things. You change maybe a little bit of the way that you maybe add 30 minutes to your process, because it's not as luxurious as the World Cup setup, but it all works.
Yeah. The ground's a little uneven. You don't have that special floor put down and stuff like that.
Right.
Obviously you and Dakota have a history together, but how was it going into this from the beginning? To become his World Cup mechanic? Was there a learning process of kind of how he wanted things ran on his bike and stuff like that? Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, between learning the bike itself and learning the products on the bike and just familiarizing more with what we were running and, kind of what does what and when does something fail and when's the wear out point on this and when's the, not wear out point on something else and so on and so forth. But yeah, just learning his preference. And I mean, all World Cup mechanics try to predict what their rider is going to want or what they're going to need throughout a weekend. Mm-hmm. Because if you can stay ahead of them, then you're ahead of your schedule, so that's kind of the thing. Cause I mean, sometimes the riders might not know, they're just, hey, I don't know, go do a lap and see what tires we want to run, or we'll go do a lap and see if we want to, change a clicker, so the whole time you learn the rider and you start to try to know and work towards recommendations or just being that one step forward to know when they're going to want to change something. So you can already have it ready to rock and roll or, whatever the situation would be. I mean, cause there's not a lot of parts that racers change on a given weekend. I mean, drastic changes are very few and far between for most people. So, you're just reading the track, reading the racers, reading kind of, the spots that are going to look like they're going to make a big difference. If we do this, then it's going to slow us down in the motorway, but it's going to give us all the speed in the woods and vice versa. And, you're just thinking about that stuff as the week goes on and the feedback comes and so on and so forth.
So what are your days usually like there? Are you pulling pretty long days, or is it kind of chill in some aspects?
Yeah. So probably usually wake up between 6:30, I take a shower, go get breakfast, at the hotel breakfast and stuff that, we're, usually in a good spot. 23, our team manager hooks us up pretty well and puts us in good places that have good access to the venues. So, that's smooth for us.
That's definitely clutch.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty routine. It's good. He's been doing it for a while, so he knows what's up. Walk down to the pits, 8 or so, depending on the day, depending on the practice schedule, start unpacking the truck, get the bikes rolling for the day, get the doors open on the tent, all that stuff. And, from practice day up through race day, the mornings change slightly as far as what we would do or what we need to do, but it's pretty routine. And then usually the riders are off the track by 4 or 5 in the evening. You're washing bikes, then you're breaking them down, and at dinner by 7:30. So it's pretty routine. There's sometimes there'll be a 2-hour gap between when you saw your rider and when they're back. If it's like Leger was a super slow and long lift, a 2-lift system, and they weren't fast by any stretch of the imagination. But then, Leo Gang was like crazy fast lift and, a short course. So, you'd see them a lot quicker there. So some downtime here and there, go over, talk to some other buddies in other pits and, stuff like that in that time, but pretty standard days.
What is your favorite track to go to after this past season?
Well, this is my first full World Cup season. The area that Leger was in was pretty epic, the Port de Soleil, because there's so much riding in that area. So from the riding aspect as a mechanic, you could go ride your heart out. You could go get lost. You could just, you would take a year or more to ride all the trails they have there. It's just insane. But, like Austria, Leogang is pretty nice mountain, pretty nice lift. You can get to the full top pretty quickly. I've been to 2 World Cups now. As far as the Euro World Cups, ask me that in another year and I'll let you know.
All right. It's awesome you get to get some riding in on some of these races.
Yeah. I mean, Morzine, there's so many trails there, and there's bike park trails that like you're just pushing the joeys out of the way and like jumping from berm to berm just to be rude and be funny about it. But then there's, the super steep trails that you're just like, you can't get far enough back on the bike and you're just like holding on and just catching a little tiny rut at the bottom and then just shooting out of them. And, it's the best of both worlds for, all the riding there is pretty epic.
Are you putting tires on any of the World Cup tracks?
No, put accidentally for maybe like 100 yards, put a little bit on a Leger track. But it's because it was like 2 weeks before the race, we were crossing the mountain or whatever, but it was a grass area. It wasn't anything crazy.
Okay.
Yeah.
You go from these super high intense top level races all around the world, and then you come home. What's your riding like at home nowadays?
Yeah. So I live across the road from Green River Lake State Park, which isn't known by many. I mean, central Kentucky, we're not close to a big city or anything, but it's pretty good single track. Most of it's hand built. It's been there for a pretty good amount of years. Have a decent riding crew. It's for a 120, 130 bike. You're going to have as much fun as what you're ever going to need on these trails. You can pedal and go full XC mode, but you can do a bunch of mini enduro kind of loops. Just, good technical riding, and it's across the road from the house. So that it's quicker for me to ride to get on the trails than it is for me to drive over to the trailhead and start riding. So that's pretty nice.
Oh, awesome.
We have tons of riding though. Like within an hour's drive, you can hit so many places that are good. We got flow trails close by. We have more technical stuff at, smaller places and like a buddy's farm, and just pretty good variety. That's one good thing that Kentucky has. We might not have the biggest mountains and the longest descents, but it's easy to get a good variety of rocky, rooty terrain in one spot, then flow line in another spot, and get your mix of what you're feeling for those days.
Right on. So let me ask you this. There's that old saying that the painter's house is never painted. So how good is your bike running right now?
Yeah, need to fix a few things. That's the best way of putting it. I would rather spend my time working on the team's bikes and things for the team than worry about my bike. Because one, I'm not going Mach 10 down the side of a mountain and have to worry about smoking into a tree. I have to worry about Dakota's bike working so he don't smoke into a tree and get hurt and end the season. I can ride, but my brakes might need bled, so might wait an extra week than what I should versus we bleed the World Cup bikes like almost every day. It's, stuff like that. You don't neglect it because you don't have time for it or you don't like want to have a dialed bike. It's just like, what needs to actually be fixed. And like, oh, this is definitely going to cause me to stop riding my bike if I don't fix this versus it's fine.
Yeah.
Kind of stuff. It's a bad thing because you learn that more the more you wrench on bikes, and the more you wrench on bikes, the more you don't fix certain things that maybe don't need fixing.
Yeah. The more you wrench, the more you realize what can wait.
Right. Exactly. It's like the painter, in that situation he's like, my house isn't going to rot until I wait 5 years after I don't paint it again, and it's only 3, so I'm good.
Yeah. Are you transferring some of your mechanic knowledge to some of the students?
Yeah. I try to teach everyone to be self-sufficient as much as they can. Some people want to learn, and be as good as they can on wrenching on their bikes. Some people could care less.
Yeah.
It's drastically different in that way. Any chance that I get, time allowing, to show them, hey, this is how you do this, like this is how we change out your linkage on this bike, or this is how you set up your gravel bike tubeless or whatever it would be.
Yeah.
We can do that. And we have a lot of tools there at the college and, a little workshop and everything like that. So it makes it a good spot for them to learn how to utilize, because, I tell them like, hey, when we go to a big mountain bike race, I might be handing out bottles. And if you get a flat during practice and then, you got a race run soon after, you're on your own. Like if, coaches are out doing the other aspects, because there's usually like 2 or 3 events kind of all simultaneously running at once at the nationals and stuff. So you kind of have to be self-sufficient because you can't really rely on knowing someone's going to be there to help you sometimes.
So, there's the painter's house that's never painted, and there's the coaching coach that never does the athletic side of things. Kind of, where do you lay on that one?
I don't go to the gym as much as when I raced. I definitely build more workout plans than what I do workout plans. I really enjoy the days when I get to go out on the road bike and like do some kind of like intervals and like test these intervals and make sure they work for what's needing to happen, or go out on a group ride with the team and, go do some hill repeats with them and, get some laps on slalom or whatever it would be. Like those days are awesome. But yeah, there's definitely more days where I'm sitting there looking at a stopwatch than I am putting on, my helmet and whatever for it. But yeah, the gym work and the yoga work, that's the one that I probably unfortunately miss out on the most of, because I'm usually spotting and like, making sure someone's not going to throw their back out in the gym versus, doing a workout with them in that sense. So it's a give take with it all.
Yeah, for sure. The World Cup season is there's a couple more races left.
Oh yeah, we got Maribor, then we got World Champs at Val di Sole, and then we have Lenzerheide in Switzerland, and then we come to Snowshoe for 2 races.
So yeah, I'm excited for the Snowshoe race.
As most Western North Carolina and East Coast mountain bikers are.
Yeah, the first World Cup race that you can drive to.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll be driving up and picking up some of the guys from Europe at the airport and taking them to Snowshoe from there. So it's nice though. It's going to feel like our backyard compared to, having to go all the way to Europe to race a bike. So it's going to feel local.
Give the Euros a West by God tour.
Yeah.
How do you see your career moving forward? Is wrenching, is this something that you think you found your passion for?
Man, I really can say that I do love this side of the sport. For the ones that really, really know cycling and really, really know like how the bike industry works, a lot of people do multiple bike industry jobs throughout their career. And that's a good thing because it keeps it fun, but it also keeps you to learn more and more about, different aspects of the industry or different aspects of a brand or whatever it would be. And this is like kind of one of those steps. I've coached and I've done, the racing side of things and, the athletic side of things a good bit. Now that I'm getting my hands in on the mechanical side of things, I could see my career going down. And, maybe when I'm older and don't want to deal with mechanics, maybe I'm helping manage a team or, doing something more, retirement direction. I don't know how to frame that kind of, but it's good. And the mechanic side of things is nice because I'm still ride my bike a lot. I still, really get into the nerd side of things of like, oh, this is the millisecond here. This is the millisecond there, and getting to ride and test some of the stuff that you want to do and have the ability to push your bike or push yourself to a limit to test and see how something's going to work, and then get to do that on the World Cup scale is a lot of fun.
And it's probably really cool for Lindsey Wilson to be able to say, hey, our cycling coach is also a World Cup downhill mechanic.
Yeah.
So there's some bragging
rights. That's kind of how I
rights.
pitched it to him when I told him that I was looking at this. So yeah.
That's cool that they're, able to give you the time to go do this, because there's definitely some value that you bring back to the school for that too.
I mean, I'm a greenhorn in a sense to it all. But every single day I'm learning so much. And I mean, you just pick up on, walking by the pits when the XC people are warming up. That helps me bring, some notes of like, oh, this was a cool thing that I saw so-and-so do. Bring that back to the athletes when they're like, because they ask like, what do you think it's like at the World Cup level? And like being able to say like, oh, they definitely do this or they definitely don't do this. That's a big thing, because I mean, those riders that are looking to, hopefully be a pro someday at some level, these are the questions that, get answered to help them be on that way.
Yeah.
Because I had the same questions when I was at their level. I would love to know what I know now at that time in my life. So yeah.
Would you be where you are now if you think you knew something different?
I don't know. I mean, hey, I'll give all World Cup racers credit that, the level of risk that they take to go as fast as they go is big. Definitely do not think that you could go as fast as a World Cup racer most of the time, because you can't. They are going at like superhuman pace through some trails.
I've followed Nico down Lower Black, and he was on his like little puny cross country bike, and dude was just gone. So
yeah,
and effortlessly.
And don't discredit the cross country riders either. There's a lot of stuff on the cross country course that, like, with a high seat post, spandex, and 100 mil of travel, I would never hit.
Totally.
Some of those features are gnarly. Like, I mean, at Leger, there was one feature that you could see from the lift that was simple for the cross country riders, but you would see tons of Joeys coming down the hill on, full pads and a full downhill bike and almost eating it. And it's just like, and on TV and even in life, like on the XC bikes, like it didn't look like it was hard for them at all. But you'd have people just drop off of it and like almost lose their front wheel and start to go over the bars and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just a different level of the sport. That's for sure. And there's plugging back to Pisgah here, there's a reason that there's a lot of people that come to Pisgah to train and come to, just Western North Carolina in general to relocate or come out of there, just because the riding's good and you can make a career in cycling and live in that area. You guys do have enough and have good enough routing to make it happen. So it's one of the coolest things about your guys' little pocket of the world.
We know that. Yeah. We definitely know it. And that's why we love it so much.
Yeah.
Well, dude, Josh, thanks for taking the time. You've been gone for a while, so I'm sure you're probably trying to clock in some wife time, and she's probably got a honey-do list for you and get caught back up with all your coaching. So thanks for the time, and hit us up when you come down to Western North Carolina, and if not, we'll see you at Snowshoe.
Absolutely, man. I will happily see you there.
Awesome. Thanks, dude.
All right. Thanks.
Mangler, what do you think is more intimidating, managing equipment for a top 10 placing World Cup downhill racer or a varsity collegiate program that participates in all disciplines of cycling?
Dude, that's a tough one right there, because I don't even know, like, both of those have such high degrees of expectation. And to really put one versus the other, you've got your top level pro racer that has what they expect, and then you have collegiate racers that don't know what to expect, but you want to prepare them to know what to expect. So it's kind of half and half to me. What about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I kind of feel that way. I think that maybe working with the collegiate program, and the quantity of people, and like he even talks about in the episode, sometimes, they're not really in tune with their equipment and it gets clapped out and you're having to deal with that, and also their training program. It's good, but also you kind of owe it to the collegiate kids, because you're kind of training them to become a World Cup racer someday, perhaps, if that's the path that they wind up taking.
Absolutely. So, it's kind of like, it's good because he gets the pressure from a World Cup team, and then he can go back and show his collegiate team what kind of pressure they need to expect.
Yeah, I think it's a good combo all the way around, and I think it's good preparation for what he's doing, and I have the highest amount of respect for the amount of pressure he's got to be under.
Yeah, kudos to Josh for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's the time in the episode that we talk about the weather. So what the hell is up with the weather?
Yeah, we're having a ton of rain right now from Tropical Storm Fred. Definitely possibly getting more than 6 inches of rain in some parts, and, that means a lot of potential for, landslides, washouts, but hopefully Pisgah dirt holds up pretty well. I would imagine it's gonna definitely take a couple of days to dry, and there may be some trees down. We went without power all afternoon and evening yesterday from a falling tree in our area, which is pretty common, but we're over near the DuPont and Canoga area. But after this storm moves through, it looks like it's kind of back to our usual summer, highs in the low 80s, chances of afternoon storms as usual.
Right on. Well, I hope to get knobby tires down again by the end of the weekend, and I'm going to be keeping my eyes open on the zones that drain well and ride okay when it is wet.
Yeah, we'll probably have some scouts giving us some info and we'll kind of know what's going on.
Yep.
Well, guys, that is a wrap on this week's episode. And as always, you can find us on social media. Just search Pisgah Podcast. And we've got shirts for sale. $5 going to Pisgah area Sorba. Just hit up pisgahpodcast.bigcartel.com and place an order, and you'll probably get some cool extra swag with that.
If you ever joined your college cycling team for fun and wound up working in the bike industry as a result, then it's your turn to click subscribe and share with your friends. And buy your friends a Listen to Pisgah t-shirt and a koozie. So, you know what? I was thinking I might not have dropped out of college if I would have known that there was a women's cycling program.
I probably would have went to a better college if I had known. The best case scenario, World Cup level competitor.